how well this is going to work.
You're taking
This
Brad's
is
spot
the
this year, right?
Westminster Standard Podcast. I'm Ryan Beasy, coming to you live from Louisville, Kentucky, the home of the Presbyterian Church in America General Assembly, which also may be close to the headquarters of the Presbyterian Church USA, or is it Polygamous Church USA? We're not really sure, but welcome. We've got Zoe Miller, BL Peters, Thomas Ricard, and everyone's favorite Polish guy, Ken Wojnarowski.
That's
Welcome.
debatable.
Well, how's everybody doing at this? What is this? The 53rd General Assembly, almost ready to convene.
It's hard to believe it's been a year already, but yeah, we're here. I woke up at 4:15 this morning. I'm ready to snap some necks and cash some checks, as they say.
Cool.
Boy.
That's great. Everybody like Louisville?
It's a pretty cool town.
It's a happening place behind you there, Ken.
I'm in a very interesting place.
Yeah. Thomas, are you at an Airbnb?
I am. Yeah, I can't disclose my location for safety purposes, but yes. Yeah.
Well, that's what happens when you write 17 overtures.
Yeah. The ACF actually put me out. They've got a couple of guards out the front, try and protect me.
Oh man, yeah. There's a TV show about that, I'm sure. Well, how we're going into General Assembly here in Louisville. Last time we were in Louisville was 14 years ago. I remember it well. I stayed at the Brown Hotel, which is also a hotel where the Queen, the previous Queen, stayed. Not sure what that means, Ken, but you got a blue screen of death, it looks like. But you're back. That's all right. What do you think about this year's GA? We've got some moderator nominees coming, I think.
Supposedly there will be more than one, which is, kind of exciting, but also kind of disappointing because I feel like there will be a clear winner. But that's just my personal opinion. It'll be interesting.
There will be a clear winner.
There has to be a clear winner.
That's right. There has to be. Otherwise, we'd just be paralyzed. I've heard Mel Duncan is going to be one of the nominees, as well as Frederick Nykirk of the Ascension Presbytery as another nominee. And
also known as Jay.
Jay, yes. He was my overseer when I was an intern of Presbytery way back in 2009. I think what a year, 2000. I think it really tells us how far to the right the PCA has moved, that our two nominees are guys that anyone would identify as strong, robust, conservative, and confessional men. So that's encouraging. But what we want to talk about tonight, I think, is either BL's pillow or overtures. So I'll put it to the panel. Oh, it's a chair. This is
a chair.
It's a very comfortable chair looking. So seeing as you don't have a pillow, I guess we're stuck with overtures. BL, you are the official representative of Westminster Presbytery on the Overtures Committee. Ken, you are the official representative of, is it Catawba Presbytery?
Catawba Valley, actually.
Catawba Valley Presbytery.
Yeah, it's a valley.
Okay, it's a valley. I thought it was a river or a mountain, but here we go. And then
I'm not from here, so I don't know.
Okay, yeah, you're from Poland, I think. And then Thomas, you're the author of the largest number of overtures. And Zoe, you are the person on this podcast least likely to ever vote in overtures. So we have our superlatives. Right now, yeah. Ken, you want to walk us through how do you think the day went? BL, why is he wrong?
Oh man, this day we've been moving through overtures pretty well, a lot faster than what people were thinking we were going to move. But There's been a lot of ups and downs, that's for sure.
Yeah, a lot of things voted up and a lot of things voted down. That's thank you for that insightful commentary there, BL. What any other insights that you can share?
Well, we do have new clickers this year, and the first attempt at using those this morning did not go very well. So we reverted to the old standard of the blue card
Wow.
for all votes before lunch. And in the process of trying to get the clickers to work, I think Ken got all of his steps in for the day.
That's good. And Guy Waters has been elected the chairman of Overtures, professor
Yes,
and dean of RTS. That's
he did a very excellent job. He has done an excellent job thus far. Very graceful as a chair, moving the meeting along. Very graceful to me as a speaker. The couple of times I had to go forth to speak.
wow. You were hitting the mic. That's
Well,
brave.
we have two representatives from Westminster Presbytery, and as I'm the junior representative, I was told that I would be doing all the speaking.
That was very nice of Warhurst to do to you. Um, well, I think what everyone wants to hear about are the deacon overtures. So, what happened with those? Are we going to have women deacons at this time next year in the PCA, or I mean, what's going to happen? If you read the Moscow folks, it sounds like the PCA is circling the drain. But what happened?
I'll let BL jump on that first.
The docket as presented grouped all of the officer related overtures together, and Overture 37 from Pacific Presbytery was the first on the docket. And there was some debate. The author of the overture spoke to the overture, and ultimately the assembly answered it in the negative, with the grounds being our current documents address this situation sufficiently. And I'm paraphrasing, that's not the exact wording. And then a number of the other overtures in that grouping of officer related overtures were, it wasn't an omnibus. The mover of the motion was very specific. I think it was ruling out on Matt Fender that this is not an omnibus, but each one of those overtures was grouped together. Ultimately, Overture 72 from Presbytery of the Ascension was the lone removal from that group. The rest of those were answered in reference to 37, and Overture 72 was approved as amended. And Overture 72 just requires sessions to annually record all members of the session and the diaconate in their minutes for review by Presbytery. And speaking as someone who reviews session records, that will be helpful for us as a committee. There have been some questions at times: does this church even have deacons? Because no diaconal minutes have been reviewed by the session and noted in their minutes.
And really, Overture 72 shouldn't be controversial, because it's not really about the functional female officer thing. It's about making sure that our minutes are accurate. And there are many churches that rotate their elders and their deacons. And every year, 3 or 4 or some roll off and some roll on. The presbytery needs to have accurate reporting for that.
Well, that information should be sent to the clerk of the presbytery to add to the directory every year. Sometimes that's not the case.
I can tell you that when I was clerk of Tennessee Valley Presbytery, and the funny thing is, I was clerk for like 16 months, and yet the number of times that I begin a sentence as "when I was a clerk of Presbytery," but I can tell you that was never done, and it was because the clerk of Tennessee Valley Presbytery at the time never asked for it. So I think putting this in our book would be a good thing to do. Thomas, will this add a lot of work?
Ultimately, you shouldn't have to ask for that, Ryan. That should be that's a frustrating thing. We should not, as clerks or chairman of the committees, we should not have to ask for things. The presbyter should be on, which it's not a perfect world, and I drop a lot of balls, so I'm not going to go much farther than what I just said.
Yeah.
You know, one of the real issues, though, was 72. I think we had some debate on, but it wasn't as big of a deal. The bigger deal was answering all of the related officer overtures in reference to 37. That really was not a great idea. And it wasn't an omnibus motion, but it was kind of an omnibus motion. So we couldn't pull things out of the motion unless it was like motion from the floor. And there were a couple things that were pulled out, but many of them were not. And so even the overtures that were trying to do something different than not talk about women deacons, but just talk about the officers and what they're supposed to do, those were answered in reference to 37, which doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. And so all of these overtures are answered in reference to 37, but they don't related to 37. So there's that.
So what you're saying is even the overtures that were designed to strengthen our commitment to ordination and ordination of men only, those also were answered by reference to 37. And so what the committee's recommending is largely, we're not dealing with this again. The court has spoken to this for the last, 3 years?
Yeah, essentially that's what it is. And there's a group of brothers who probably think, well, the BCO is ironclad as it is, and we don't need this. I was the only one to speak against the omnibus, non-omnibus motion from the floor. And my argument was is that we are being sent by our churches to do this job. This is not a week of vacation. It's a lot of fun. We get to see people. We have a lot of jokes. There's a lot of fun trinkets passed around.
Bourbon and cigars.
Yeah, I don't know what that is. But the thing is our churches are sending us here purposefully to do a job. And so when brothers are making the argument that we don't have time to do these things, I really don't like that argument, because this is why we're here. We're here to do the work of the church. And there are 10 overtures addressing this? The denomination wants to talk about it. And we're not going to do that.
Now, what do you say to the argument that our BCO is already sufficiently strong on ordination, on male-only ordination? And I was struck, as much as I appreciate the overture from Mississippi Valley, I was struck that what David Strain said, as he summarized it, was a lot of it was just taking language that is in disparate portions of our Constitution and putting it in one place to prevent the invention of ecclesiastical titles. So what do you say to the argument that we already have all the tools we need to act like a Presbyterian denomination?
I would say that if we didn't need these overtures, then we wouldn't have these overtures. If things were abundantly clear and everyone was on the same page, then everyone would be on the same page, and that is not the case. I really was not thrilled with how we handled this. Now I'm one commissioner, so the body has spoken, but I think we should have dealt with some of these and actually debated them.
What was the count? I'm trying to find that. Our friends at Polity Matters have very well
look up 37. It was
37, 115 to 14. So I don't know if that's even enough for a minority report on women as ordained deacons.
A minority report was mentioned by one brother regarding the ones that were voted.
So yeah, there was a brother who brought the prospect of a minority report. The problem is that he could not complain against the action of the non-omnibus. He could only pull out one of the overtures that was in that non-omnibus and complain against that action. And finding enough people, I think, was getting difficult.
Only 23 people who voted not to refer it. And Thomas, do you recall what the threshold is for a minority report? Is it 10%?
I believe so. 10%, and then 4 ruling elders, 4 teaching elders minimum. So if it's 115, that wouldn't be 11 and a half people.
Okay.
So
yeah. So I think you could find definitely 11. I don't know if you could find a half a person, but maybe just have to round up and get 12.
It depends on what time of day
I think
you're
this
asking.
is a really positive step. I mean, the PCA has always been very clear about this every time this discussion has come up, and this reaffirms everything that the PCA has done in the past. It continually comes up about every 15 years, and it has been something that the PCA continually discusses. What relationship do women have, particularly women, I think is the discussion, although 9.7 deals with men as well, with the relationship of how they work alongside the diaconate. I think the error is where there's a blurring of lines based on people's different theological or scriptural interpretations. 9.7 is not ambiguous. 9.7 is very clear about the process and how that goes about. And so I think this...
It's in housekeeping, we'll bring it.
It's very clear, once more, that's not a very large number of people. And it roughly might align with, numbers that you see, 7-10% of people that practice some form of this or another. So I think that the BCO has been clear and is clear, and to point to that and scriptures is helpful.
The scripture is very helpful on this point. And the Committee on Constitutional Business even said with this Overture 37 that it contradicts the scripture to ordain women. So, Thomas, that's helpful that you noted that this is part of the cycle, the life cycle of the PCA. That about every 15 years, we have these questions, and I think these are bad ideas to ordain women. And yet the PCA keeps dealing with it. It was Atlanta last time we had. It wasn't women's ordination in Atlanta, but it was put the women on the Covenant College board and a few other committees, and that was voted down again. And I had someone asked me the other day, how do we stop these sorts of overtures from continuing to come? And on the one hand, I sympathize with the question. But on the other hand, how do you stop people from having bad ideas? Well, you spend generations teaching them good ideas. Zoe, what are your thoughts? Do we have enough? Do we have the tools we need to protect the women from being put into positions where they're not equipped, not called, not authorized? What do you think?
Well, I mean, what Thomas said is totally germane, and it's true. I totally agree. I mean, what's in our BCO is very clear about what we believe about officers and ordination. However, the clear, plain language will never deter those who seek loopholes, and I think that's basically what the overtures that were written against functional female officers were kind of written to address. Regardless of your position on functional female officers, you can't really turn anywhere without being faced with the evidence that there are people who invent offices to place women in. Whether or not our denomination officially forbids that is another question. But just visibly, I wrote an article on this earlier this year. Just visibly, it portrays the wrong message to a congregation. Is do we want to elevate women to the position of leadership in the church or not? And the thing is that to fall back on the BCO having the clear has had is, however, I think in the light of the fact that we have had so many overtures about it, kind of like Ken was saying, is that there's so much incentive for us to discuss this. And frankly, I believe it's right even to use legislation, like the overture process to, the BCO tells us the positive thing to do. It tells us ordain men. However, I think it's appropriate and right to use legislation to prevent them from doing not the thing that they don't want to do. So, I was explaining this to a friend earlier, and it sounded a lot better and more cohesive, but I think it's appropriate to use legislation to kind of close some loopholes that are being exploited. And frankly, if we don't have the will to enforce what our polity already says, the legislative piece is not going to be as useful as we think it will. But again, I am kind of disappointed that we didn't get to see an overture about functional female officers make it to the floor, whether in omnibus or in the minority report. But again, I don't think this topic is over for the PCA at all, just given the fact that we did have an overture that proposed even creating the office of women deacons. So yeah, those are my thoughts. Be interested to see what other people have to say about that. But yeah.
I think percentage-wise, I think that it's helpful to be able to see that the ARP has allowed sessions to be able to choose diaconate. And there was a memorial, is what they call it in the ARP, that came up, I believe, last year. And that was not an overwhelming, it was close to a 55-45 split of trying to remove that. The RPCNA just had their synod last week, I believe, and they tried to be able to remove it from their testimony. That got a 62% vote or something. It needs a 66 to be able to remove it from their testimony. They did affirm that women can still serve as deaconesses or deacons. But even that was a 80-30 vote. And so, but the PCA is not speaking in those type of terms and numbers. And so if there are, people who are conscience bound that believe that the Bible does teach that women should serve in the diaconate, then I would encourage them to try and see whether you can serve in the denomination that has clearly propounded time and time again that women are not ordained or qualified to serve in that position because of Scripture. Those numbers are always about this percentage. And so, but I do also think that when we speak about the BCO, generally speaking, speaks about the positive thing put forward. The only time that we've then started to be able to say this is what an unordained person should not be called is in recent years. In past years, the BCO has been like, this is what ordination is, and this is who should be ordained. And the positive declaration and the positive principles are put forward. To be able to then stipulate all the negatives, it changes the whole way the BCO is written. Now, I would not, I just don't think it's the passing of this. I think should speak very, very clearly and directly, and should encourage people to be able to think about the denomination in which they serve and how they serve that denomination, pursuing the peace, purity, and unity of that denomination. And so I think that's, it's a great victory. I think for that number, it's not, 45, 55, it's not 50, 50. It's overwhelmingly the PCA has spoken time and time again and reaffirmed the positive affirmations that our BCO puts forward. And so encourage people to turn to 9-7 and to encourage sessions to be able to sit down and read through it. And particularly not just the godly men and women, but also the members in their churches, that they can start to be able to make a list of and say, okay, how are the deacons and the diaconate helping these people? And how can we use these other members to be able to help and assist those people that are vulnerable, that are lonely, that need help and assistance? Like, how can we, do that? And I think that, the BCO positively puts forward a great solution.
Yeah, and I think we're sort of at an inflection point as a denomination and as a society where people don't understand how constitutions have functioned. That it's not a matter of, well, the Constitution doesn't say we can't. That when our constitutions are giving principles. Ken, what do you think about this from Heath? That if we don't handle this now, we'll just see more next year. Yeah,
I think he's right. I think this will continue, and part of the part of the issue with referring, so there's another comment on here I think that said asking if something can be removed from the omnibus. The overtures floor issue there with these overtures was not an omnibus. I called it a non-omnibus because we couldn't just pull things out. There were a lot of us that were actually very confused as to what was happening. And so basically these overtures were all answered in reference to 37, which 37 says, hey, we're voting no, and these are the grounds. So basically those are the grounds that go for all of them. As far as what Heath is saying, yeah, I think that saying no to 37 pretty overwhelmingly is a good thing. It's good for the PCA. But I do think what's going to happen is some of these overtures that were not passed are going to come back in some form or another to continue to try and do what they aim to do, whether for positively or negatively.
Well, and I hope that our colleagues who are in favor of women's ordination do solemnly consider what the assembly does, whether the assembly reject, we should remember that these are all overtures recommendations. So if the assembly has a mind to create an ordained office for women, it could vote down this recommendation and it will automatically come back next year with the intention of the assembly to do it. But I don't see that happening. And so if the assembly does agree with its overtures committee, I hope our colleagues will look to the ARP. We'll look to the EPC. Many of our colleagues who were advocating for women deacons are also the same ones who were defending Greg Johnson. And Greg Johnson, the EPC is trying to make room for him now. So there's a place to go if you want ordained women, but it doesn't seem like it's going to be the PCA.
I mean, we've said this many times, but there are lots of places you can go if you believe in women's ordination, both tacitly and explicitly. So there you have it.
Yeah. So the Overtures Committee did good work, I think, on women. I know some people are disappointed that there's not going to be anything getting to the floor related to tightening our regulations.
I mean,
what else?
I would disagree with that, actually. I think the overture on distribution of communion elements, although I don't expect it to pass because we just have a lot of broadness in the PCA generally about how communion is to be administered, whether that's for good or ill. I'm not saying that it's good that we have a lot of broadness, but I think where all of the energy and the angst about women serving in these functional officer capacities is going to come out on the floor if the Overtures Committee passes this in the affirmative, or even if there's a minority report. I think all the energy from the functional female officer debate is going to come out when we do this distribution of communion elements, because it kind of hits at this philosophy of ministry that says that, participation is what makes your life as a church member meaningful. And of course, that just gets to the heart of the debate on women's roles in church. And so, where I think that energy is going to come out is with this overture, even though it doesn't explicitly say that, women should be banned from serving communion elements. Part of our issue when we talk about functional female officers is those women doing things in a visible capacity that seem to be mimicking the office that is rightly due to men of a certain character who are called ruling elders and teaching elders. So anyway, that's kind of how I think that's going to come out when it comes to the assembly. But what happens tomorrow in overtures is basically going to entirely decide whether or not I'm right. So.
Well, and I wonder if there's just a lack of understanding of the dignity and beauty of something my wife calls ordinary church member ministry. Having people over to your house for supper, for Sunday dinner, watching somebody's kids. And everybody, in society, everybody's got to have a title. I was struck, the committee of commissioners that I was on, at the number of people in that organization who are a coordinator, assistant coordinator, associate coordinator, senior vice president, assistant vice president. Everybody's got this lofty title. And I don't fault them for doing that. That's the way the culture's going. But in the church, we really only have 2 offices and therefore 2 titles. I mean, some of those titles are like bishop and overseer, but there's only 2 titles that we can give people, and everybody else is a vital part of the ministry, right?
Well, I think you can give lots of people lots of titles. I think the ambiguity is when you start to be able to use feminine titles of the Greek or terminology that we have carried on that creates confusion. But I think that, yeah, we I think have moved into a place where we are somewhat blurring the lines of what I think the Catholic Church did between the secular and the sacred. And they say that if you want to do ministry, that's what you do in the sacred realms. The church touches that which is sacred. And therefore, that's what you do. But ministry is everything that we do. There's the official ecclesiastical realm of ministry, but in anything, raising your children in the fear and admonition of the Lord is ministry. Meeting with your neighbors and praying with them, and interacting with those who are outcast in society. That is a form of ministry, and that's what elders should be doing, equipping the saints for the work of ministry. And if we seek to be able to say ministry is only something that is in some official capacity in the church, then I think we really minimize what the church is called to be able to do as she sent out into the world to be able to, do ministry, and to be able to do that and to be able to encourage people that, where God has called you and placed you in your vocation, in your society, in your home, all of that is ministry. And so when we think of it as titles and roles, I think we really miss a huge opportunity as a church to be able to say that, you don't need those things to carry out ministry. And so we need to rethink a lot of what we do, and this organizational structure of team heads, and I think that's just the reality that's creeping into the church. We're running the church like a business.
Yeah. Well, in our just a few more minutes, any other overtures that were discussed today, voted on today, that we want to talk about? I think we're going to continue this ordination office conversation over the next several years, because there's, as Thomas has pointed out, Romanism is creeping into and hurting our understanding. But anything else that was that happened today, Ken?
Yeah. So there was a couple of brothers I was talking to over a text thread that were surprised to see so many things referred back to the presbyteries. And I'll say this, most of the times that something was referred back to the presbytery, it was after it was debated as to whether or not to pass it or to not pass it. So there was a lot of, it would be moved in the affirmative by somebody from the presbytery. There'd be some debate. Somebody would substitute to make it a negative vote. And then if the negative vote failed, then maybe someone would vote to refer, or vice versa. So a lot of the referrals are not the first time out of the gate. It's more after debate has gone on.
So you're saying that these were okay. So and there's a difference between to answer in the negative and simply to refer back.
Yeah. So one is a soft no. The other one is a hard no. If something is voted in the negative, it's harder to come back in the next year, because what the committee will say is, we voted against this last year. Let's vote against it this year again.
I see.
If it's referred back, you have a more chance to bring something back.
And the assistant pastor overtures were referred back, and I think there was even a page dealing with this is how it's different, how we've tried to improve it. We see Jason Stauffer here. AI, can 2 or 3 sentences about the AI committee? Are they recommending that from the one from last year?
Yeah, they are. There were some changes. They lowered the threshold of the cost from $15,000 to $5,000.
That's great.
They changed a couple other things. The basic rationale for that was, if we can't figure out how to do this AI study committee cheaply and digitally, then we've got a problem. And so
can we get AI to do it for us?
What would it take? Like, just write the AI study committee report using AI. I mean, would that not be incredible?
Is that
a waste
ethical?
of $5,000, but not ethical in the slightest. But it would be kind of funny.
Well, the unique thing we also have to consider with this 25-49 AI study committee is that in order for it to be effective, the assembly will have to prove it by a 2/3 majority, as we already have two ad interim committees composed.
Unless we dismiss one of them with thanks, or just dismiss it without thanks. That would be rude.
Polity question. With the Directory for Worship and the Christian Nationalism Study Committees getting extended, does that mean that their budget is renewed for another year? Or was the amount of money that they were allotted basically, is that it? Like, I don't know how that works actually.
Yeah, so ACCOC passed a motion basically that both committees had some, I'm going to mess up the numbers, but both committees had about $15,000 assigned to them, and they both have a large portion of that money, at least a third of it, left to be able to try and use. And so they're not asking for additional funding. They should be able to cover those funds. If they are short, then they might have a mechanism to be able to have people to be able to give to those things. And so, yeah, to be able to reestablish those committees, basically, and the PCA can have as many study committees as they want, but yeah, it does require a 2/3 threshold. I think that study committees, generally speaking, it's not the study committee per se that's the negative factor of what they are. I think most study committees have some form of portion that's helpful in it. I think the danger is that a lot of people don't necessarily like how they're used, and they become some document that is quoted, on particular lines, and so that they're, instead of helps, and I think that I think is why I think a lot of people are hesitant towards study committees in general. I think it's great that study committees don't have to be enormous dissertations. I think they should be pastorally applicable and used to be able to distribute. And I think that something like the AI study committee could be a great blessing to be able to think about how does man-made items, technological advances, how does the effects of sin affect those computers, and how can one use them, and particularly young students. I think, it's going to be a huge hurdle for them. We know a time and a place, 3-4 years ago where AI wasn't a thing, but now it's everywhere. You compose an email, it says, you want me to fix it for you. Is that ethical to be able to do? And then, writing, and I think that I hope that this might be a help to be able to, help some people, particularly young students who are going to be bombarded with this, and to be able to think about some of the ethical implications and, what we need to be able to do and interact with.
I agree. Did we get to any of the Westminster Presbytery overtures today?
Yes.
Did any of them
we
survive?
Addressed
few of them.
Not really.
One was voted no for sure. I forget which one that was.
We took up 29, 27, and 28 from Westminster.
Yeah.
And 27 was approved as amended, but the amendments, the amendments are the amendments.
All right. Well, we'll see what tomorrow holds.
You mentioned a moment ago, Ryan, that the overture regarding assistant pastors. That would be Overture 20. Let me find this.
$9 and $50.
There's 50.
55.
There's 55. And then there's another one that I just had enough.
It doesn't look like
55 has not been taken up yet. It's on the docket for tomorrow. We have 42 to BCO and RAO amendments to look at tomorrow.
Well, all right. That'll be a full day tomorrow. And you got
so how many did you have in total? Wasn't there like 85? You've gone over halfway.
We're over halfway because we had less. There were 91 submitted, and not all of those came to us. We had 84 referred to Overtures Committee. So we actually did half today, which was excellent work by the committee, I think.
Well, mainly because we didn't deal with a bunch of them. We just said, thanks, we're good, and moved them away.
Well,
not that Ken has any opinions on that, of course, but
yeah. I did write one, and I didn't get a chance to speak to it, so it's okay.
That is a shame.
Well, speaking of shame, I think we should all say goodnight. And I think Overtures did pretty good work today. BL, Ken, thanks for sticking it out there, staying engaged. Zoe, thanks for not being sidelined. Thomas,
I would never allow myself to be sidelined. I guess all I have to say is go forth, vote for some good floor nominees, keep doing great work on Overtures Committee, don't be liberal, and just keep doing the Lord's work. You guys are doing amazing. So very exciting assembly. I think it's going to be kind of uncertain. You never know what issues are going to be hot button. I think M&A is going to be big this year too. So I guess we'll just see how explosive that ends up being on the floor. But just really good stuff. I'm excited. So Ryan, thanks so much for inviting me on the show.
Well, thanks for having time. Thomas, I know you wrote a lot of overtures, and be safe. Don't let anyone know where you're staying. And, the interesting thing about where I'm staying is I have 2 showers in my hotel room, which is really weird. Yeah.
You can't hide money, Ryan. You can't hide money.
It's like, I saved a lot of money by not staying at one of the conference hotels, but just, 6-minute walk and 2 sinks, 2 showers, 1 bed, but 2 showers. So that's peculiar. You never know what you're going to get at these historic hotels here in Louisville, Kentucky. Well, as Presbycast would say, don't be an Erdman. Good night.